It's Friday, and I'm back with the next in our Fanzine Friday series. Today we're taking a look at Demonsblood number 6. Please stick around. I'm AZ Mountaineer. This is our channel, Old School Rules, where we celebrate the community of old school gamers and grognards who like classic RPGs, miniatures, magazines, and everything that goes with it. Each week on the Fanzine Friday series, I take a fanzine from my collection off the shelf for a closer look. Today, I'm thrilled to be taking a look at Demonsblood number 6 from 1980. Hope you enjoy the video. So I am really excited to be able to do this video today. I'm excited to do it because I finally have my own copy of Demonsblood number 6. About a year ago, I took a look at this fanzine and I did 1 through 5 and number 7, which is the last one. And so this was the only one I was missing. I was able to pick up a copy of this in the last week or so, and so I wanted to immediately do a video and take a look at this. You may remember I really liked it. Brian Dolton did these fanzines. I really liked these fanzines. This is the type that has contributions from a number of different people. They do 3-4 pages each in there, so it's a little bit more of an APA type of fanzine rather than some of the others we look at where the core 3-4 people write a lot of the articles, maybe get an article or a contribution from someone. So anyway, so this one, he doesn't date these. It's the size we're used to. It's a slightly heavy stock cover. Everything's just white paper folded in half and stapled. He doesn't date these. We just sort of figure it out based on the discussion in here about what's going on, like in his editorial, and also that he was on pretty much a schedule of every 4 months or so. So this one probably came out in January of 1980. He was typing his editorial on December 27th. You know, his date for submissions for the next fanzine is the beginning of March. So I'm thinking this probably came out sometime in January. All right, so let's take a look at the cover. And this cover is done by a new artist, and his name is Oleg Zakharov, and I think it's a really cool cover. I'm not sure what that creature is, but it certainly is nasty. Let's take a look at our table of contents. Bestial Growls, that's his editorial. Odd Booties, I think guy changes the name of what he is writing, is by Steve Barber. Halcyon Tales is by David Flin. The Acid Sorcerer from Graham Staplehurst. Fat They Were and Furry Eyed comes to us from Paul Blackwell. 3 Golden Apples, Tom Keenes. Werewolf Comments, that is by Brian Dolton, aka The Beast. There are a couple reviews in here by Andy Ravenscroft, and then Things That Go Bump in the Night, which are new monsters, are contributed by a number of people. Dave Davies has one, Andy has a couple, I think Brian Dolton has 1 or 2. And then the character file on the final page, which are NPCs, and that's contributed by Brian Asbury. Okay. Oh, and let me go back. So Quentin Manley and does some of the art in here, and you may see a little bit of that interspersed in there. And of course, Brian Dolton does a little bit of the art as well. Okay, so let's take a look. Bestial Growls is the editorial. He doesn't have much to say. Talks a little bit about being sick over Christmas, apologizes for the delay, that some people didn't get issue 5 until around or after Christmas. Does mention his printer is going to open around January 7th, so that's what makes me think this issue is probably coming out sometime later in January. He does mention issue 4, he got responses to his survey or questionnaire. He got about 60 of those, which tells you he's getting pretty, I think, decent feedback from people, even though he is asking for more contributions from people here. Odd Booties, Steve Barber's contribution, starts off with some discussion of his thoughts or feedback on other people's articles and earlier issues, and then goes on to talk a little bit about making the town of Demonsblood, and then this is the really interesting, the first interesting thing in his article is a discussion about level caps. And I like this idea so much I may steal it and sort of do a standalone video on this concept. So if I do, I got it from here. It sort of says, what do you do with the non-humans in your campaign? And as he says, this is one of those issues that from campaign to campaign probably varies and probably is pretty important, especially if you may take characters from one campaign to a different, go play with a different DM. Because he said, usually spells and combat, that's going to be pretty much the same, but here's an important issue. And he's struggling with what to do. And he comes up with 6 different, it was pretty good, 6 different ideas. Just ignore Gary's rule and everybody can do whatever, go as high as they want. Add on 10% required experience for every level. Or add on a fraction for the level to be attained, so it's 1.5. So from first to second, if you needed to get 4,000, you'd need 4,000 plus 2,000. So it slows down your progression, lets you go as high as you want, but makes the demi-humans earn more experience to go up every level. Essentially is 150% of what's stated in the book, is how I read his rule. Option 4, double the experience points, which just, higher multiplier. And then 5, the character can only advance past the stated limit if they use a full wish, and then they can level up as much as they want. Or obviously option 6, rules as written, just leave the level caps. So these are, like I said, these are the ideas he came up with, but he's interested in hearing from other people. I think it's a really interesting topic. Everybody has to address this, I think. And I know Gary was thinking of this as a game with rules and looking for balance, but I think a lot of dungeon masters or player groups change this rule from what's written, I think. I certainly have from time to time. He then talks about his thoughts on the new Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide. He says he's amazed by how much is in there, and thinks pretty much, you've got to get this book to play. It just has too much in there to pass up not having it for your campaign. Next, he has a new magical item, the Sword of Order. Well, Swords of Order, there's going to be more than one. It's a lawful blade. He does say there's a neutral and chaotic version. Has names, has some intelligence, and he says, basically, if you say the name, if you can learn the name and say the name, sometimes it's carved, sometimes it's not. It'll glow, and he says it'll glow. The swords are +1 or +2 in nature, and then whether they're +1 or +2, they get an added +1 when they're against chaotics, and then an additional +1 if the opponent is actually a demon or some type of evil spirit. And then they have special powers that are triggered when they're fighting demons or spirits. So if you hit it like a type 1, type 2, you get some, then type 3, type 4, the higher the level of the demon, the different types of powers that are triggered. And he says these blades will have any 2 of the following. Shoot 4 magic missiles. These are the lower level powers. Shoot 4 magic missiles twice a day, burning hands twice a day, detect invisible once a day, detect chaos once a day, cure light wounds once a day, or bless once a day. Then the level 2 abilities would be a 8th level lightning bolt once a day, a fireproof web once a day, which he says that it reacts to cold instead of fire, dispel magic, a haste, chant, or cure serious wounds, all those once a day. And then if you have attacked like a level 6, I think it's 6 or above, demon or spirit, you get the level 3 powers unlocked, anti-magic shell once a week, minor globe of invulnerability once a week, cure disease once a week, neutralize poison once a week, lower magic resistance by 20%, and +2 to hit and damage for 5 rounds once a week. If you attack a lawful target, you lose all these magic abilities. I like this idea. Not the way he's written it. I think it's once you attack any type 1 demon, there's lower level powers are unlocked forever on this sword. I might think about, if the whole mission of the sword is to defeat evil, maybe they last for a more limited period of time, because it's pretty. Some of this is pretty overpowered. You might tone down the abilities as well, and I think Gary would caution us against giving a fighter a magic item that basically turns him into a magic user, right? So I think you have to think about that as well. But I think it's a pretty good idea. Might play around with it a little bit, but definitely would think this is something worth considering for your home campaign. And so he also says if these swords are ever going to be destroyed, like they fail a magic saving throw or something like that, they, in his campaign, he doesn't ever let them be destroyed, but they would disappear from your hand and like go back to their home plane of existence, essentially, somewhat like a high-level demon, disappears and is banished. So it could be found again in your campaign world. I think he thinks of these sort of like an artifact. Says, this is obviously something you wouldn't get until you're at least 10th level. This is not for low-level characters. But anyway, that's his idea. And so then there's, as I mentioned, there's a chaotic alignment sword called a Blade of Disorder, and a neutral aligned sword called a Sword of Balance. So I think they're good ideas. I've been reading some of the Appendix N fantasy lately, and I just read 3 Hearts and 3 Dragons, or 3 Hearts and 3 Lions by Paul Anderson. Great book, by the way. And you see a lot of the stuff that Gary drew in for like the Paladin character class, and some other ideas came from that book. And he says here in his campaign, it's really law, neutrality, and chaos are the guiding themes. Good and evil, not so much. I'm still thinking my way through some things with alignment, 40 years later. But it seems to me that might make good sense as a way to think about a campaign. Anyway. All right, Halcyon Tales. Oh, he wrote that article, and then he's like, I have more time, and so he wrote an extra page and just talked a little bit about playing a few different things. Played the Dragon Magazine game, Awful Green Things. He was sort of so-so on that. And then he also saw the Dungeon Adventure miniature ranges from Asgard that just come out, and he thought those were really good. Okay, Halcyon Tales, David Flin. He writes about Superhero 44. He's got ideas on how to make projectiles like bullets of different types so that someone who doesn't have to have superpowers like an X-Man to be part of the game. So that's his idea of how to make the game a little more balanced. There's also in a couple of different places magic user spells sprinkled in here, or new spells sprinkled in here. So the first one is an illusionist spell called, second level illusionist spell called Deception. And essentially it lets him speak one sentence for every level that's not true, or some part of which is not true, but that people will believe that if they fail their saving throw, and potentially act on it if that's what you're looking for. Okay. The Acid Sorcerer, Graham Staplehurst, and this one's good. He's got a whole bunch of new magic items. And so he talks about this guy, the Acid Sorcerer. So he's got a little, like a backstory about this character. And in any event, he's been defeated, but some of his magic items live on. Okay. The Girdle of Abstention, 12 holes on the belt, essentially. And you do not need to eat or drink for 12 weeks. And so each week, if you're without food or water, you just tighten this belt, and you're able to, continue with full energy as if you had eaten. And you just have to let it out one rung at a time as well, for whatever reason. Then he has 5 different pairs of breeches, right? Pants. Frog skin, which give you the ability to jump as a giant frog. Mole skin give you the ability to burrow through rock as a giant mole. Cat skin, move as a cat, so 90% chance to move silently, 80% chance to hide in shadows. Shark skin, which enable you to swim, 24 movement rate of 24, and detect the approach of any medium or large sized monster. I'm assuming only in the water. And then toad skin, and these are poisonous. And so it's the idea is that you really couldn't tell the difference between the type of pantaloons or breeches that you found until you have an identify or you tried them on. And so somebody might have a pair and think, oh, these are really cool, and the next guy pulls them on the toad skin, save versus poison or die. So I always appreciate when people try to balance out their magic items like that. Next, we have the Gloves of Abstraction, woven from spider's silk. And if you touch someone for a prolonged period of time, even just as long as a handshake, or just put your hand on their shoulder if you're able to do that or whatever. It allows you to basically cause the effects of a sleep or suggestion spell, your choice. The Iron Gauntlet, only worn by fighters, must have a 14 strength, and they get a hit probability in the damage of an iron golem. However, it will turn you evil and you will attack any good aligned characters that you know of, which could be your own party, right? It's cursed and you will refuse to remove it. Even if you were an evil aligned character, the compulsion to always attack anyone good aligned you get near is probably pretty disruptive, so you probably want to get rid of it. The Steel Gauntlet actually allows you to cause a bladed weapon to appear. It says pop out of, I guess it's magic, of this, and then you can use that. And the Medallion of the Zodiac is a huge, it's about a little bigger than your hand size disc, has the different symbols of the zodiac, different alignments, different elements, earth, wind, air, and fire. And it will teleport you to an adjacent plane, no chance of error. You will lose 1d8 points of intelligence for 2d6 turns. So I guess it's a good way to move around between planes, but doesn't seem to have a great amount of use in my view. Maybe I'm not getting it. The Velvet Slippers of the North Wind give you monk-like abilities. You can move at 23 per turn speed. You can do a double jump kick. That's your first move in combat if you want, which is a +2 to hit and does 3d4 damage each. And your armor class improves by 1. Your move silently improves by 15%. But they will not function if you're anywhere around another monk. The multicolored habit, only usable by monks, basically raises you by 3 levels, most of your skills. And then here's a cool one, the Bag of Pebbles. Small leather pouch has 1d6 of these pebbles. Depending on your class, the pebble has a different effect. Fighters, thieves, they're +3 sling bullets. Clerics or monks, they can throw them, and the range and damage would be as a sling stone. They're +2 to hit and damage. And a magic user illusionist who has one can throw them. They basically act as a magic missile. So that's interesting. The Hat of Intelligence is the traditional Mickey Mouse cone-shaped hat with stars and moons on it. Gives you a +1 to your intelligence and some bonuses to things like reaction rolls, picking locks, solving trap problems, finding secret doors. So that's pretty good. The Horn of Plenty basically gives you non-magical food and drink for up to 20 people 3 times a day. That's pretty helpful. The Cap of Fortitude gives you +1 to hit and damage and +1 to your initiative roll. The Cap of Defeatism looks just like the other one, but if you are hit by an opponent, you will automatically miss your next attack, and if you drop below 50% of your hit points, you will flee. The Heal Stone, held by a cleric, touches someone, heals 46 points of damage. Used once per turn, has 24 charges. I think it's way too useful. Maybe once a day. The Growth Stone, when you take it, it was in like an ornate box, and when you take it out of the box, it grows. It doubles its size every round until it completely crushes up against something hard like walls in a dungeon, or it reaches a volume of 6,400 cubic miles. So that's pretty silly. But a good trap, kind of magic item. Bracelets of Light. You can cast 3 light or 1 continual light spells, or a 66 lightning bolt every day. I don't know about the lightning bolt, but the light function seems pretty good. The Headband of the Eye, formed from the central eye of a dead beholder, set into a band of platinum, and you can use it as an anti-magic ray once a day. No way I would let somebody have that. Although they do, tone it a little, right? They put a 12% chance of a backfire each time. It's only usable by a magic user, and there's a 12% chance it backfires and hits the magic user instead, and would wipe all his spells for the day from his mind. So now, this is quite this guy goes on and on here. He talks about all the demons and devils that are in there. So then he has a whole section where he talks about basically the flip side, the good side, angels and all type cherubs, principalities, things he calls virtues, all these different types of good aligned, extra planar beings, right? And he gives you their abilities and different hit points, stats them all out basically. Everything up through Archangel, Gabriel, and Michael. So good stuff. Good article. There's a ton of stuff packed in these usually. Okay, Fat They Were and Furry-Eyed by Paul Blackwell. He gives us a review of Starfleet Battles by Task Force Games. Obviously sci-fi, and he liked it quite a bit. And then basically says I think he hasn't been playing much Dungeons and Dragons, and he says, and part of that is the rule bickering caused by AD&D. He doesn't like it, and he says, I really love role playing, delving a dungeon. He said, what I don't enjoy? Spending an evening arguing over the rate of fire, hit points, and which spell someone can cast. Anyway, feeling a little frustration with the new AD&D. And says that it's caused him, in fact, to switch over from Dungeons and Dragons to RuneQuest, and talks about some of the differences between that. Like there's less, in his view, less combat in RuneQuest because it's more difficult or more deadly. Just got Apple Lane, which is a scenario, and he really thinks it's really good. I've got that. I think it'll be interesting at some point. I get around to some videos and talk about some of these accessories and modules, adventures from other games, and how we might convert those to Dungeons and Dragons, and the great ideas you can take from those things, which is one of the reasons I like getting a good adventure. No matter what system it's authored for, you can always get the ideas from there. Okay, so that's enough of his, and he has some stuff in there for RuneQuest, a concept on how to stat out some different abilities, I think. All right. 3 Golden Apples from Tom Keynes. And he has an article for Chivalry and Sorcery, which I have never read, but I understand to be a really rules-intensive fantasy role-playing game, right? And he's complaining about the way they give magic to, and to whom they give magic, and talking about certain things he thinks no one should be able to do unless they're really, were sort of professional or focus their life on being a master of magic. And so he's got suggestions on how to change that in the rules for that, as well as some ideas about different types of equipment and armor you could wear for that game. And then we have another one of these random spells that got stuck on the bottom of a page. This is a first level clerical spell or a second level magic user spell called Strike Dumb, although it really should be, I think, Strike Mute, because when you read it, what it does is cause your vocal cords not to work. And so for 5 minutes a level, I think is what they're trying to say there, which that's probably too long. But it's a great spell, right? The ability to just freeze someone's vocal cords, hugely powerful against an opponent magic user. So I like that. I think it's pretty creative. Brian Dolton writes Werewolf Comments, and it's like several pages long. I broke it up into 2 different slides we're going to talk about. He goes on, he spends a whole page talking about how he's going to write a lot of pages, and he doesn't know what he's going to cover. So the first thing that he has is another one of his towns, and he stats this all out. You look at this map. These are really great contributions. He's got a little artwork. He likes to draw Marvel characters from the comics to fill space. So here's his little seaside town. It's called Beer for whatever reason. And I like what he does. The numbered homes or buildings, like are taverns or people's homes or merchants, home/goods store, and just got basically a couple little streets along here. Not all the buildings are full, so the DM could flush those out or just, maybe make them be empty or skip them over. But each of these ones, he gives a little bit of information about the NPC, a touch of their motivation. Several of these people could, under the right circumstances, be convinced to either help you out or maybe go adventuring with the party. And he stats them all out, even if they're like 0 level or 1st level. So it's really well done. It's one of the really good things I like about these sort of towns or cities or, ideals like this that they have for there. And the second thing that he has in here is a champions scenario. This is a superhero role-playing game, and he stats it out, but essentially it's all Marvel characters. He's got Angel, Black Widow, Iceman, Rampage. He's got the Hellfire Club in here, and he's basically saying your superheroes are going to be tricked to think that the champions, the heroes I just mentioned, are trying to kill you, but it's really a member of the Hellfire Club, pulling the strings and trying to set it up. He wants you to fight each other, and then he's going to show up and fight whoever's left. But in Brian's idea of this, some point early on, you're going to realize we didn't really attack each other. And so when the Hellfire Club gets there, they won't, your party will still be alive, and these other superheroes will still be alive. And then it'll be a big super battle against the Hellfire Club and the other bad guys he brings with him. So, all right. He says he's played it a couple times. He thinks it works pretty well. And it was pretty good. All right. Then he has a quick paragraph about setting up, getting someone started in his campaign, new character. Roll characters, choose race, choose class. And he said, I'll assign them a brief origin, birthplace, early life, and some likelihood of travel. You might get a bonus skill, very minor in nature. Maybe you know how to recognize edible fungi in the forest. Maybe you know how to ride a horse. Maybe you know how to swim. Give you your known languages. Figure out whether you can read or write, which is, he says most people in his campaign can't. Maybe clerics, magic users could, but a lot of fighters and thieves cannot. And then you're off, off you go. So you have some reason to fight. Here's just a couple of little maps of the superhero tower. Then the last thing that Brian Dolton has is this new character class, which I like quite a lot, and it's called Elemental Shamans. A subclass of the Storm Priest, which is another character class he's created. You choose your prime elemental: earth, air, wind, fire. What did I say there? Earth, air, water, fire. And then you'll get special abilities. You get a +3 save and only take half damage against your own element, but a -2 saves against any of the other 3 elements. You will not attack anything that connects to your element, but like elementals of your chosen element will never attack you. And I would even go so far as to maybe some other creatures, like maybe if yours is fire, maybe like salamanders won't attack you. That kind of fire salamanders won't attack you. And then you have these special abilities, level 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and he's got columns for each. So you've got the and he gives these abilities, right? He names them, like for air cutting, lightning light, wind whistle, predict weather, breeze, well, fog, and thunder. And as he says, some of those are in the player's handbook, some are not, right? But in the article, he lists it all out, and you're like, oh, this is going to be really cool. And he doesn't tell you what the special abilities are. Because he said, I'm out of space or just tired, I'm not going to write anymore. And so you've got all the names, but if they're not in the player's handbook, you don't know what they do. Anyway, so I think it's a good idea. It's probably one of the best player character classes I've seen, in the sense of I think you could work that into your campaign without it being really all that overpowered. Okay. So then we have 2 reviews from Andy Ravenscroft. The first is the SBI game, The Creature That Ate Sheboygan, where it's board game, right? And one person's the monster, one person represents the military and the police, tries to keep the citizens from getting eaten, tries to keep buildings from getting destroyed. And so the board is basically just a village or town, and the monster's job is to eat the citizens and destroy the buildings. And the other guy's, it's a 2-player game, and the other guy's job is to stop it. It sounds like a lot of fun. He says the monster, you get to pick different abilities and give it different stats, defense, and special attacks and all that. He said, so every time the monster could be a little bit different. And then he has a review of a book called An Atlas of Fantasy by J.B. Post. And again, he says this is a book of maps of Middle Earth, Earthsea, Dying Earth, all these fantasy and other fictional places. And he likes it. He said you should take a look at it first to see if it's something that would be useful for your home campaign. And then we've got a third new spell. This is called Sealing, a second level magic user. Allows you to create a goo, like super glue essentially, and smear it over an area. He said you could cover over a hole in a boat. You could go up around a door, and seal a door shut. And that's the spell. And finally, we have new monsters. The Megatherium is a Graham Staplehurst, and that's a giant dinosaur-like creature, like a sloth. The Glyptodon, which is a 12-foot-long armadillo. So again, sort of a giant prehistoric type creature. The Ice Horror, Davies. It's was created by magic to fight long ago, and so there's only a few random one of these that might still be alive. They can't walk on stone or earth. It sort of, I guess, like burns them, causes damage, so they'll only walk on water. So they'll always be in like subterranean caves. And so they're walking along on the water. They're cold, and so they'll freeze the water, and they can sort of make a ice bridge as they walk along the surface. So just a random creature you can encounter underground. And here's the scary thing. If they touch you, the way I read is successful attack, which they hit you, causes a freezing effect. And so after you get hit, you take 2d6, or 2 to 6, right? Damage every round as you basically freeze. So they don't have to keep hold of you. Once they hit you, the freezing starts. It doesn't stop until you're frozen solid, or someone can cast resist cold or something else that the DM decides would stop the freezing process. So that's pretty darn deadly. Okay, so the next one is by Andy Ravenscroft, The Ripper of the Snows. And let me show you this artwork. So this artwork comes to us from Demonsblood number 4. Quentin Manley, I believe is his name, who did the art. Great art, right? And what the heck is this thing? Well, I'll tell you what it is. This is the Ripper of the Snows, a massive reptilian creature with a long neck and sharp elbows. And it likes to hunt mammoths. And it comes up next to you, and then it uses those sort of spikes on its shoulder blades, and it cracks them in the back, breaks their back, and kills them. Can't do that to small things like people. And I think it says anything smaller than a horse, it really can't effectively use that attack. It can always bite you, though. So just big, nasty, 14-hit dice creature. And then he has the Phantom, which is, of course, a monster that appears in the monster manual. But his Phantom is just a powerful version of a ghost. Its touch causes sleep for 2d6 turns if you don't make your save. And they can dimension door away. They can walk through wood or stone. And they can cast bolts of cold 3 times a day. So that's his Phantom. And finally, we have this artwork down here. I'll get out of the way. At the bottom, which is a sand giant. So it's a, giant is like a storm giant or a hill giant, but it's a sand giant. It lives in sand, desert-like conditions. That's 14 feet tall, and it's generally just a large giant. And then the last page of the back cover is the character file by Brian Asbury, and he's just got 5-6 different NPCs. This is a really cool thing they did. I like it. It's really helpful for any DM who's getting this every quarter on a campaign, right? It gives you their name, it gives you a little bit of background, again, motivation. Some of them might go adventuring with you. It tells you what kind of things to be interested in. They even got one on here who's sort of like a little trap or mini side adventure. So we've got Lala, the sorrowful-looking waif who will wring your heart with her sob stories, looking for a good aligned cleric or paladin to come with them and help cure her mother. And if they do, she takes you back to their house where there are a bunch of evil priests waiting to attack and subdue you with the hope of using you as a human sacrifice. So that's a little surprise. There we go. Demonsblood, number 6. I'm so excited, so happy to have this complete, like a lot of collectors, I like a complete collection, so I'm so happy to have my all my Demonsblood fanzines now. Hope you guys are enjoying the channel. Hope you continue to enjoy this series. I sure do enjoy making these. Next week we start on a brand new fanzine, so I'm looking forward to that as well. Hope you guys have a great rest of the weekend. Until next time, my friends, keep rolling 20s.